All right, change pace real quick. So I want to know if you have any writing quirks. I was talking to Daniel Abraham, a friend of yours, and he told me he has this uncanny ability to forecast the number of words in a piece of fiction he's writing so closely that I thought he should go to Vegas and test his odds there. Is there anything that's unique about what you have to do, your process? Do you need to sit in a certain place?
Well, I really only write at home, which annoys some of my readers, I know, but I know there are other writers who can write when they're traveling. They can write on the airplane, they can write in a hotel room if they're in Budapest or whatever, knock out a few pages a day no matter where they are, but I can't do that. I've tried to do that at various points in my career. I've owned a laptop back in 1990 and took it with me on a few trips. It was a heavy, cumbersome thing, and I got sick of lugging it around since I never did any really useful work on it. I would try, and it wasn't my space. I didn't feel right. It didn't feel, the laptop didn't feel like my computer, and the chair that I was sitting in didn't feel like my chair. I basically need to be in my own space with a solid block of time where I'm not going to be interrupted. I don't like being interrupted. Now, mind you, there are times when the work is going so well that you can interrupt. You can set the house on fire, and I'll get up, put out the fire, and go right back to it. But those times are rare. In many cases, the phone ringing, or people coming to the door, or even the knowledge that I have an appointment in an hour or two will distract me sufficiently that I can't lose myself in the work under the work that I'm presently working on.
Okay.
I suppose the other quirk that I have is that I still write with WordStar 4.0 on a DOS computer. Yes.
Wow.
It's still the best word processing program ever made.
Do they still make that? Or
No.
Okay.
Certainly not the version I made. At one point they did come out with WordStar for Windows, but I don't think it was very successful, or very good.
I haven't heard of WordStar for a long time. Okay. This is an interesting question. It's something I've asked a lot of writers. There's this notion you may have heard called semantic contagion, and it describes the idea that there are some ideas that should not be shared because the introduction of the ideas actually cause the behavior. An example of this is there's a condition that is someone wanting to have a healthy limb amputated, and the sharing of that, there are studies that show that it's increased people who want to do that. And so my question is a little bit around self-censorship. Are there things that you elect not to write about? Or is it kind of just you sit down and whatever the story needs is what you write?
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything where I'm engaging in self-censorship.
Okay.
I probably have to think about that one a little longer to see if, there are things I don't write or ideas I don't have. I don't include every idea that wanders around to put in a story. It's a question of how it will work in a story, what effect will it have on a storyline. I'm constantly getting ideas or things like that. Well, I could have, I could turn this character into a vampire, but that would be stupid, wouldn't it? Or, aliens could land at this point, but it would be a little odd since it's a Westeros story, and what are aliens doing in it? So, so I have stupid ideas, and I hopefully reject all the stupid ideas and keep the good ideas. But I don't. I don't think I reject any for reasons of that I would call censorship.
Yeah, that maybe that's a bad word. A good example I think about is Stephen King had a story called Cain Rose Up about a teenage high school kid who goes up a tower with a high-power rifle, and after things like Columbine, he elected to pull it out of the anthology, the collection that it had originally published in, thinking that maybe it was maybe tipping some of kids that were already a bit imbalanced, into an action they might not otherwise have taken.
Well, that's an interesting question, but I don't know. I think if you go too far down that road, you are gonna, Babylarize the work. Where do you stop that?
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff in. Of course, I was a comic fan when I started, and every comic fan of my generation knows the the stories of Frederick Wortham's very influential book, Seduction of the Innocent, that attacked and essentially destroyed the comic industry as it existed in the early 50s. And it was full of studies of little boys who put on a blanket and jumped off the roof of the barn thinking they would be Superman.
Right.
For that reason, we should not have stories about Superman flying around with a cape, because some little boy might put on a red blanket and jump off his barn roof.
That's a good point. It's a slippery slope.
Yes, I think it is. And, did that guy who's just killed all these people in Norway do it because he read a book about someone killing a bunch of people, or because he read the newspapers? I mean, should we publish news stories about people who do terrible things? We try to control this behavior. I know I'm a football fan, of course, and football, the networks will no longer show fans who run onto the field,
right?
Because they did in the past, and that just encouraged more fans to run onto the field to get there in a moment of fame. So I don't know.
No, that's good. So we'll kind of close out with a couple of questions. This is a personal passion of mine. I'm also a musician, so I'm interested to know: do you have a certain genre of music or artist that you enjoy?
Well, you can read my novel, The Armageddon Rag, and see all of the bands that I dedicated to in the front are my favorite bands. I loved the rock music of I suppose it's the rock music of my generation, the rock music of the 50s, and even more the rock music of the 60s and early 70s. When you get into the late 70s and disco comes in, then I go out.
Yeah, I would have gone out with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go, I actually have a copy of Armageddon Rag that I picked up, so I will go straight away and read that. Did you have any special extra work to have to do to get rights clearances for that particular novel?
Yes. I have Armageddon Rag is a very troubling book in my career, because it almost destroyed my career. It was a massive commercial failure. It got great reviews. It was nominated for the World Fantasy Award. There are people who love it very, very much, but it sold terribly. I couldn't sell my subsequent novel after that because people looked at the sales figures of Armageddon Rag and essentially didn't want anything more from me. And those damn song clearances took forever to get. I had opened every chapter with a 2-line quote from a rock song, and there were yet further rock songs that weren't actually embodied in the text. And when I wrote it, in my naivete of my youth, I was under the impression that all of this was fair use. And to my publisher said, no, it's not. You have to get permissions on that. At which point I consulted my own attorney, actually a leading attorney in copyright law, and he said to me, in my opinion, all of this is fair use, but there's never been a test case that actually establishes it. And the record companies are extremely litigious, and if you don't get permissions, they will sue you. And I will defend you to your last cent, he said, and perhaps win the case if we can take it all the way, and that will clear it for future. But I was reluctant to spend all of my last cent to establish this precedent. It seemed cheaper to negotiate the provisions and pay the fees, and that is ultimately what I did. But it was not just the fees, which added up to thousands of dollars, with $100 here and $200 there and $500 there. But it was the time it took. I mean, with every 2-line thing, you had to find out who owned it, and you had to write them a letter, and they would write back with their terms, and you would write back, and then there would be a contract. Sometimes the contracts were 20 pages long for, to use 2 lines in a chapter heading, and they had things like most favored nation clauses. It was a nightmare. I will never again quote any song in my works that's under current copyright.
That's a good cautionary tale for the rest of us.
Yes.
Yes. So last question. Tell us anything about the future. Like, I know you've got a lot of work left just going out to promote this book. You just finished signing 300 or 400 books here. But what's the next couple of years going to bring?
Well, I have a number of things that are backed up because of I've been pushing so hard to finish Dance with Dragons. So once I get back from my touring here, those are going to be the first priority. I have to write a short story for the Paul Anderson Tribute Anthology that Gardner does well on Great Bear editing. I have to do another Duncan Egg novella for my own anthology that I'm doing with Gardner, Dangerous Women. And I have the big concordance, The World of Ice and Fire, that all the histories and genealogies and backgrounds, sort of a coffee table companion book to the Ice and Fire series. And that one's due at Random House, and I'm working on that one with Elio Garcia and Linda Ann Thompson, who run the West Road website.
Do we know when we might see that one in bookstores?
I hope in 2012. It depends on how long it takes to finish it, but
okay.
Ideally I would like to finish it by the end of the year. And then when's winter?
Yeah.
So
you're gonna be a busy man.
Yeah. There's also Wild Cards. I'm also working on another Wild Cards.
Oh, good.
So once again, I'm editing that. I'm not writing for it, but the editing requires a certain amount of work. So
for sure.
We got a great group of writers doing that. Fort Freak is just out, the latest Wild Card, and this will be the sequel to that one called Lowball. And it again should be out in, I don't know, late 2012, maybe 2013.
Okay. Well, George, I really appreciate you sitting down, talking to us for a little while. I know your time's at a premium, so thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for being here.